If you make music using virtual instruments, VSTs, then using a 2-keyboard setup can be a real game changer for certain situations. So let me give you a couple of examples. One-note tremolos. You could do whole chord tremolos. And then flams as well. If this was a real hang drum, this is what the sound is you're hearing, then it would be trivially easy to just on your instrument, but on the piano it's kind of difficult. It's doable, but it's just tricky. Whereas using 2 pianos, really easy. A different kind of musical context where this comes in handy is where you want a drone note as part of the pattern. So this is particularly the case in styles like bluegrass. Here's my drone note. I'm just going to keep my left hand repeating a G. And then a third musical context is minimalism, where you're thinking in terms of 2 groups of notes that are locking together to make an interesting pattern. And those groups of notes kind of overlap range-wise, and so they'd be quite tricky to play on a single keyboard. So here's an example. So here I have basically this going on in one hand and this going on in the other hand. If I were to play that on a single keyboard, it would be here, which can be a bit awkward and kind of get in the way, become a bit of a stumbling block. So for this setup, there's nothing special that you need to do, just plug in 2 MIDI keyboards and you're good. If you only have 1 MIDI keyboard, it is possible to do a similar kind of workflow with just a single keyboard, and I'm going to demonstrate how to set this up in Logic. If you're not a Logic user, watch anyway because it's really quick and you may be able to apply the same concepts to your own DAW. So step 1 is just to find the sound that you want. I've got a basic synth here from Sculpture. Then I'm going to duplicate it by hitting Command D, and I'm going to actually rename this one higher and this one lower just for clarity. Step 2, on the lower patch, I'm going to add a transposer on the MIDI effects chain, and I'm going to transpose this to 24. Now step 3, I'm going to constrain the ranges of each instrument by using the Logic scripter. So I'll open up the scripter and go to key range here. And on this higher patch, I'm going to set the maximum pitch to 127, and the minimum pitch I'm going to set to this note here. So what I'm going to do is keep pressing this note and drag this slider up until I can no longer hear a sound. And then I'm going to fine tune it. So there you go. Now anything I play below this note won't pass through, and everything that I play above this note will. Then we're going to do the lower patch. This time on the lower patch we're going to set the minimum pitch to 0 and the maximum pitch to be the note below the one that we were playing before. So keep pressing this note and drag it down until it stops, and then fine tune it using these arrows. So now anything above this note we can't play, but we can play everything down to the bottom of the range of the instrument. Now all we need to do is set both of these to record, and we can play repeated notes very easily. So we've got, and if we go up an octave, we can keep going. Now once we get to a certain point, it'll stop working because then everything that we're playing will be in the range of this higher patch, and so we lose the ability to do those repeated notes. So we have a range of 2 octaves to play with this kind of setup. And if you want to shift the whole thing so that you can do lots of repeated notes but in a really high register, then you can simply place another transposer at the end of the chain on each of these with the same value, say 12 or 24, and just move the whole thing up or down depending on your needs. So now that we've got it all set up on a single keyboard, let's look at some more musical examples so you can see this technique in action. So as you can see, it's a really simple concept, but it just unlocks so many more musical possibilities and patterns that I would just struggle to come up with on a conventional keyboard. What this really underscores for me is the value of being thoughtful about the way in which you're performing the music and whether or not the tools at your disposal are serving the musical context and the sound that's in your head. I love playing the piano. It's my first instrument. It feels like my primary musical language and way of approaching composition, but there are these really severe limitations in terms of how you play repeated notes, certain chord voicings that are just impossible to do because of the stretch, or certain kinds of inflections that would be very easy to do with the human voice, for example, or on a stringed instrument like the violin, but are very difficult to pull off in an expressive musical way using a keyboard. So it's just good to be aware of all these things when you're sitting down to compose. I hope you found this video helpful, and let me know in the comments your favourite ways to get beyond just a simple MIDI keyboard setup. I'm always interested to know about alternative ways of being expressive into my computer, which is such a huge part of being a composer in the modern day. So thanks very much for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.